Hello and welcome to Birth of a New Dimension. My name is Aurora, and for the next hour I'd like to talk with you about the anthropomorphic versus the abstract, not that I'd like to bring this all into duality, and explain more about feelings of bliss and how that relates to abstraction, abstract consciousness, and how that relates to the trajectory of your awareness as you are flying through time. Brief pause. So I'm going to include, as part of this week's broadcast, a link to a picture that I painted, or several diagrams which I have drawn, that show the energetic apparatus that is what I call your higher faculties. And this is your brow chakra, or the energy center that is up above your eyes on your forehead, and your crown chakra, or the energy center that is located on the top of your scalp, like where you part your hair in the middle. And it is the intersection of these two energy centers that creates the organ of perception that I call the higher faculties. Your higher faculties are what many people on Earth would think of as superpowers. They are powers that are beyond the five senses and have been beyond what humanity has defined humanity as. So I go into this extensively in my online class, Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans, where I speak all about the energetic anatomy, beginning with the red chakra. This is why you are a full spectrum human, because humanity for a long time was defined merely as red, a physical body, plus orange, mammalian emotions, with a thin smear of yellow on top, the cerebral cortex, or your human operating system, your mind, that makes you think like a person, like a human. And none of the other higher levels and higher frequency colors were recognized. However, to be a full spectrum human, you are also green, which is unconditional love. And that's at the center of your body, at your heart, your chest level. And it is like the clearinghouse or central processing unit for all signals, all intelligence signals, those that are coming from the lower dimensional, more dense realms and to the higher dimensional, less dense realms, and vice versa, from the higher dimensional, less dense realms into the lower dimensional, more dense realms. When I say higher and lower, these are not meant to be terms of value. This does not denote their value or their worth. This denotes their frequency. So if I'm going to say something is a high note or something is a low note, that's not to say one note is better than the other. We are just talking about its relative position on a harmonic interval scale. And this is the same thing with dimensions. Dimensions are not better or worse, even though humanity right now is carrying a very burdensome program where it feels that it is just a bunch of quote-unquote lowly sinners or, egotistical beings trapped in a physical body, and that the denser realms are not as good as the less dense realms. Ah ha ha ha, that's my silly laugh. I laugh at that nonsense. No, of course not. No, of course not. The dense realms are beautiful realms, and there are realms that are even more dense than the ones that we presently occupy in this, material realm. And it's like saying everything has its place. However, there are aspects of distortion in the realm that we are presently experiencing that have made many humans feel that this realm is not a fun or pleasant place to occupy. And we'll get into that, the distortions and inhibition of bliss. Brief pause. So the way the dimensions are arranged and the way the energy centers or chakras on your body are arranged, it is like a ladder. The capacity for energy to ascend and descend. And your body system, your intelligence system, is also a refinery. So you have impulses that come from the source, or a signal that comes from the source of consciousness. And the source is also the destination, because that impulse of consciousness comes from the source, descends through the various levels of reality or levels of density until it manifests or coalesces in what we are familiar with, the realm of physical matter, the third dimensional realm. Literally, matter is light that has the privilege of going slower than the speed of light. It is light which has been slowed down. What a profound miracle. Each one of us in the physical flesh is made of matter that is light, that is moving slower than the speed of light. And that's not the end of the journey. That's only half of the journey, the emanation. There's also the return journey, where that very same impulse of consciousness or intelligence or awareness ascends the ladder of consciousness, of dimensions, of density, and becomes less dense, less and less and less dense. So let's use food as an example. An impulse comes from the source of consciousness. In the physical realm, this is a manifestation from the stellar network. Our nearest connection to the stellar network, our nearest star, is Sol. I'm saying hello to Sol right now. It's right above my head. And that is our sun. And the sun emanates light, which it interacts with planet Earth and is trapped by chloroplasts. I say trapped or collected because that energy impulse, if it did not interact with any physical matter, would have continued endlessly. And these photons or energy impulses that are sent out by the source, by the sun, these are like feelers. These are analogous to the sonar emanations, sonic emanations, of a bat that uses echolocation in order to build an image of its context. So too does the sun and all of the stars, which are intelligent beings on a grand scale through time that is almost so vast that it's almost beyond human comprehension. These intelligent beings that are stars are sending out photons as feelers, and it's what they use to sense their context and see what is happening. So if those feelers do not interact with any material substance like a planet that they can either bounce off of or become collected by, those feelers just continue indefinitely. However, if those feelers, those emanation impulses, actually meet matter, then something happens that makes the little particle not simply continue on its course. And that little particle then goes on an exploratory journey. So if it reaches a chloroplast, or an energy collector that is on the surface of a leaf here on Earth, that little impulse, energy impulse, goes into the dream of the plant. That consciousness from the source becomes a part of that plant's dream. And then that plant is either consumed by a human or eaten by an animal, and then the human eats the animal. And that is how matter, the solidity of your body and your experience, come into being. That is not the end of the journey, because that initial energy signal or impulse that has now been translated by a chloroplast into physical matter is still a feeler of consciousness from the source. And you are also a broadcaster of consciousness from the source. And that is what your body does. Your body, and I'm not just speaking about your physical presence, I'm speaking about your entire full-spectrum, multidimensional body, is a refinery for consciousness. So physical matter, solidified light, has entered your body via food. You're eating food. Like, let's say you're eating a lovely salad or something like that, nice and healthy. And that the consciousness of that food is coming inside of you, and then it is being broadcast through the less dense levels of your being back to the source. You broadcast the food experience back to the source. And this is not just the experience of chewing and chomping away, as you actually eat and swallow and masticate your food. It's also the experience of digesting that food, having it turned into glucose and being utilized by your muscles and being used as protein in order to build more muscles and making you think and making you feel. All of that is broadcast backwards. Backwards meaning a return journey to the source. So light or signal or intelligence is emanated from the source, becomes solidified matter. You ingest solidified matter, and then you broadcast that refined consciousness back to the source. And this is part of this beautiful biofeedback loop. Energy being sent out, energy having an experience, and energy being sent back. This is what humanity was created for. You were created to be part of this beautiful, enormous on a grand scale, feedback loop. And it is also through time. It is, experiencing many experiences through time and the overlap of experience, because I'll also tell you, and this is not my original thought, this comes from a physicist named Richard Feynman, who was active in the 1950s and was quite an iconoclast, an unusual character. And he, for example, he played the bongo drums, and he visited Tanutuva, a tiny Mongolian place, and he learned about Tibetan throat singing and became an active, like a preserver of the culture over there, bringing the idea of throat singing to the West and helping that not to fall into obscurity. And as well, promoting very new ideas in the world of physics. And he promoted the idea that there is only one photon. There is only one photon being emanated from every star, from everything that can emanate a photon, from every reaction, from every, change in level of excitation at the subatomic level, that it's all the same photon. And it's just moving forwards and backwards through time endlessly. So imagine the first time that it was ever emitted, it went out and made a simple line through reality, and then it returned back to the source. Again, I'm broadcasting here using my voice. I'm drawing a picture with my voice, but ordinarily I use either an interactive whiteboard or pen and paper in order to draw pictures and teach people about this. So if you're interested, please sign up for my class, Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans, where you can get the full treatment. You don't have to just eat a little bit of lasagna over the radio. You can see all the pictures and really get an idea of this. So imagine with your mind that I'm drawing a picture of a big fat dot, and now I'm drawing a line emitting from that dot, and now it's returning to that dot like a loop. That's the first photon that ever emitted, and then it emitted again, and it drew another loop, and now it returned back to the source. And if I draw many, many, many loops, I almost kind of end up with like a flower shape with many petals radiating around a center. And imagine doing that endlessly, endlessly, endlessly through time. This is, I call it one photon, just endlessly embroidering time, going out and returning back, going out and returning back. And this is profound. If you really take this to its logical conclusion, it is the understanding of how connected consciousness is, that we are all literally the same photon, but on different trajectories of its journey. So some people are the photon that have only made, let's say, 25 little flower petal-shaped cycles outside of the source. And maybe some people are the photon after it has made 30,000 or 12 million or a Googleplex embroideries of reality, leaving the source and returning back. And each time the photon learns, and each time the photon's journey is refined. And this is how consciousness learns and is refined. So you are part of a giant stellar feedback loop, and the feedback loop is not only with this star, it is with the entire network of stars, and not just in our own galaxy, but every point of consciousness, every galaxy that is spread throughout not only this universe, which would be this particular version of reality, but throughout the cosmos, which I define as every possible reality, every possible timeline, every possible version of what can be. And when I talk about these different versions of reality, you can think of reality as an editable file, like a term paper, like you're writing an essay, and that spelling is not quite right. Well, let's save the term paper and then go back and fix that word. And so we'd end up with different versions of reality. And reality itself is in a process of refinement, heading towards the apex, or the denouement, or the pinnacle, or the zenith of what consciousness can be. And so we are right now in human history and what is experiencing on Earth at a very fun and exciting time. One of these denouements, or zeniths, or apexes of events. What I cannot call it the singularity because now that word has been changed or co-opted to mean so many different things. But let us say the convergence of many, many events that are coming together. I'll also refer to another very great thinker. They're just all coming, in conversation on this broadcast today. Terence McKenna. He is not on the physical planet anymore. Great thinker, visionary person. He not only was responsible for bringing the Psilocybe cubensis mushroom from the Brazilian Amazon to, the United States, where people could actually ingest it and cultivate it. But he also wrote an interesting software program in the 1980s when computers were not as ubiquitous and available as they presently are. And the program is called Time Wave Zero. And it is an exploration of time as a fractal expression, and the idea that there are reverberations within time. Like I'm saying to you, time has a harmonic structure, just like music. If I was at my piano, I'd play a little ditty. Just like music, time has a harmonic structure, and within each structured segment, there are miniature self-similar structures, and that's what fractal means. So Terence McKenna's program explored the fractality of time, correlating events with a quality of normalcy, or a quality of predictability, or a quality of unpredictability. And what he found was that at a certain point, all of these harmonic waves converged to a point where they all canceled each other out. And the point of canceling each other out occurred on December 21st, 2012. It was like the still point, or the moment of starting something new. And brief pause. His idea was that at that moment of total balance, that it would be like the moment of infinite improbability, when anything can happen, everything will happen, everything did happen, everything can happen. So I named this radio broadcast Birth of a New Dimension very specifically, and it's named in conjunction with a visual painting that I created that shows these events which are occurring. And the birth of a new dimension that I'm referring to is a bringing together of two formerly divergent realms, two places that used to be separate but now are able to be connected and to communicate. And the two realms are the realm of the inner, like in your inner fantasies, your inner imagination, your emotions, your thoughts, everything that you consider to be inside, quote unquote, your mind, and the realm that we see around us with our five senses, the realm of objective materialism, the realm of seemingly hard-edged objects. When we get to really high levels of physics, really well-trained scientists will admit that we're not in a sea of objects, we are in a sea of possibilities and probabilities, and that it is the effect of observership, literally your perception, observing these uncollapsed waveforms, that creates them into a physical place. Your eyes are like ovens that are cooking the dough of the potentiality around us into actual bread that you can eat. Okay, that's the analogy that I like to use. And let's also bring that into impeccable language when people speak about the fifth dimension. It's a wonderful rock band from the 1970s, right? The fifth dimension. But the fifth dimension would be analogous to the bakery where the bread of your timelines are baked. If your timelines of your life are like long, skinny French breads, the bakery where those breads are made is the fifth dimension. It is where the potential ingredients for bread all come together and coalesce into matter that we can actually experience. So in this broadcast, I referred to the miracle of chloroplasts, collecting or capturing a photon and translating it from light into physical matter. You, with the paintbrush of your imagination and with your perception, and as an observer of consciousness, are doing that every day also, taking the uncollapsed waveforms of possibilities and probabilities and literally using your perception to build a version of reality around you based upon your inner creativity. So when we understand this, when you really embody that understanding, you see that it is empowering, and you can really be happy because it means that you are not just a passive victim experiencing reality. You're an active participant creating reality and then experiencing it. And this is what we are as God. We are God. So in this whole broadcast, I'm also helping to retrain and reconnect you, because for a long time humanity has been disconnected from the source of consciousness, only on the going out journey, not on the emitting back journey. Consciousness that has been emanated from the source and coalesced as matter, but due to genetic blockades, unable to be connected to the source of consciousness while they're actually here. And that is such a loss, because that's like not being able to get real-time instructions or send back real-time broadcasts to the source about your experience here. Unable to effectively speak to the source right now in real time about what you are experiencing here, it makes it harder for you to experience course correction. So you're a trajectory. You are awareness that is moving through time. Like imagine a baseball on a trajectory, leaving the hand of the pitcher, flying through space, and then eventually, meeting the bat at where the batter is. You are on a trajectory, and that trajectory can be changed. You can be flying, slightly more to the left, slightly more to the right, slightly up, slightly down. And that change in trajectory means you are changing which timeline you are experiencing. And of course, if your timeline is a timeline where you're driving your car into a brick wall and you're soon going to be busted into 1,000 pieces, you would want to change your trajectory immediately. And if you are not connected to the source in real time, the source doesn't know, oh, you're in a car heading towards that brick wall and you need to change your trajectory immediately. When we are in connection with the source, then we can use our higher faculties to see through time and navigate away from the membrane of death. And that means that you understand, if I make this choice, this is what will happen. If I make this choice, this is what will happen. If I go here, this is what will happen. Right now, it is amazing that humanity has made it as far as it has, flying blind. Essentially driving by looking in the rearview mirror with no view of what is happening in the future. This is not how we were designed to exist. We were actually designed to have an eye of time and to be able to effectively perceive the world of time, what will happen in the future, and make appropriate choices based upon that. If you could really see through time, why would you ever choose to get in your car and drive towards a brick wall and be busted into 1,000,000 pieces? Unless you were self-destructive and intended that. But if you were intending to continue your consciousness trajectory, you would not be on those timelines. Now let's talk a little bit about seeing through time and the higher faculties. So in terms of raising your energy, when you raise your energy, I'm talking about that ladder of density and going from the more dense physical realms to the less dense higher dimensional realms. So this is what people here on Earth speak of as ascension. It's the completion of the journey, and it is what we are here to be doing. So from humanity's viewpoint, this is like the ultimate goal or triumph or endeavor. And from the cosmos's viewpoint, it is like coming home. It is inevitable, and it is what you were designed to do, and you were never designed to be separated or to live without that real-time broadcast in any way. It is ascension. This is what ascension is. It is returning to the source that you were emitted from. It's a two-way journey. You are both emitted and then you get to return. And you return with all of the information and experience that you have had here in the physical realm. So when you are on this return journey, you are raising your energy from the density of the physical realm through the various energy centers. And this is like, a spiral rising up your spine. In the Far East, this is known as the Kundalini, okay? And at a certain point, it gets to the brow chakra, the energy center that is on your forehead, and that is known as the Christ chakra. It is associated with Christ consciousness. I cannot say this enough. It is not only for Christians. It's not only for people that believe in the tenets or dogma of the Christian religion, or wear a cross, or have anything to do with the historical person named Jesus or Yeshua. It is not about that at all. Let me be really clear here, because this is inclusive. This is not to exclude anybody who is not only in the human race, but a consciousness. If you are conscious, you are a part of the network of consciousness that's called Christ. It's the Christ Consciousness Network. I wish we could name it something else and call it something abstract, like the 1, 2, 3, 4 network, or the triangle network, or something that doesn't have any connotation with an earthly religion or belief system, because I think that is very off-putting and makes people feel like they have to be in a special club in order to access these levels of consciousness. Ha ha ha, how ridiculous. No, you do not have to have anyone's permission. You don't have to be in a special club. You don't have to be part of a special religion. This is an organ of your body that you are supposed to have access to. It's your higher faculties. You don't have to have permission to open up your physical flesh eyes and look around at the world and perceive colors and perceive light and shadow and learn how to, walk around and not bump into things. Like, that's what we do when we're little tiny children. We learn how to decipher the signals from our eyes and how not to bump into things and fall down the stairs and things like that. This is what we are trying to do now as cosmic children, because we are trying to learn to open our inner eye and see through time, make sense of what we are seeing, and not bump into objects. In this case, it would be hitting the membrane of death. And when we are able to use our higher faculties effectively, we can navigate through time. I need to describe more of the higher faculties. So you raise your kundalini and you get to the level of the wisdom of the chakra, the energy center that is on your forehead. But that is not the end of the journey. When that happens and you activate that higher faculty, people have amazing insight. That's literally your eye of insight. However, it is insight on the level of anthropocentric interpretation. Anthropocentric means human-centered. So you're still seeing through the lens or the perceptual filter of being a human. Even though you are beginning to perceive time and the multidimensional reality, you're still perceiving it through your human filter, and that means there's plenty of room for misinterpretation. So many people have raised their energy up the ladder of densities back to, getting to the level of their brow chakra, and they thought that's it, that's the end of the journey. And they also got the message or the impression that they were the only person who had ever achieved that level of attainment, who had ever activated that Christ center. This is where the idea of the Messiah complex comes from. A person who reads the first paragraph of the book of the cosmos and draws all of their conclusions based on that and doesn't bother to read the second paragraph. The first paragraph says, you are Christ, and you are God. And the second paragraph says, and so is all other consciousness that is here in existence. And so the second paragraph comes when you activate the next highest chakra or energy center, and that is the crown. It's the connection to source. So what I am saying is that right before you make that completed return journey is when your consciousness is most vulnerable to deception. And this is deception through a misinterpretation of what you are seeing. You can also understand your chakra, your eye of wisdom, your inner eye, as the eye of assigning meaning, or significance to symbols and events. When we receive a word, that word is abstract. It actually is just a collection of sounds. we have to ascribe meaning to that collection of sounds. So if we take something like the word dress, I can say that word is like an empty cardboard box, and I put meaning inside of that box. Because dress can mean several things. It can mean a physical structure of cloth that you put on your body. It can also be the verb, to put something on. It can also mean like to dress a turkey, to prepare a turkey for going into the oven. Dress can mean many things. So when we say a word symbol or use any kind of symbol, a visual symbol, an auditory symbol, we are requiring the use of our perceptive filter to apply a meaning and a significance to that symbol. When people raise their energy up to the level of this brow chakra, but they haven't yet connected to the crown, they start to see symbolic significance everywhere. However, they are not necessarily reading it or interpreting it correctly, because they're still interpreting it through their anthropocentric or human-shaped filter. When you get to the level of the crown chakra, you have reached abstraction. You have transcended the human viewpoint, and you now look at the world as a set of particles and forces and timelines and possibilities and probabilities. And it's a very different viewpoint than looking at it through your perceptive filter. I use this example many times. To see particle A interact with particle B and have outcome C is very different than to see person A shoot person B with a gun and outcome is death of person B. One is an abstract description of forces and events and trajectories through time, and one is the description through the emotional perception of being a person of what events are going on. So this has everything to do with judgment and a sense of morality and the sense of emotional distress that the anthropocentric viewpoint gives when you identify as a human and you identify as a biological life form, and when you see certain possibilities being played out, you perceive them very negatively, emotionally. And at the level of abstraction, there is less emotion, there's less interpretation, there is less outrage or negative emotional reaction when perceptions happen. And it is the interplay or the interrelationship of these two chakras that creates the higher faculties. And if I were, I'll share pictures so that you can see what I'm talking about. It's the violet chakra is your crown chakra. The indigo or blue chakra is your brow chakra. And they interrelate at 90-degree angles, just like the blades and rotor of a helicopter. The helicopter is gyrostabilized in its flight through the atmosphere. Your consciousness is gyrostabilized on its flight through time. When you have these two chakras activated properly, and when they are healthy, healthy functioning organs of your energy system, then your crown chakra acts like a divine guide that tells your eye of insight where to look. And I like to say your eye of insight is like your library card. When you get that, when you raise your energy to that level, it's like getting a library card for the library of the universe. You can read whatever you want. You can learn whatever you want. It's an amazing thing when you find this happening to yourself. If you wish to learn about chlorophyll, you don't have to go to the library and to get a book about chlorophyll or open up your computer and go to a website and read about some scientific information. If you want to learn about chlorophyll, go to a plant and focus your attention on that physical plant. And literally, your attention is the emanation of the organ of your brow chakra. Your brow chakra emits a long tendril that is called your attention. The word attention literally comes from the word in Greek meaning to reach out, attenuos. To attenuate to something means to reach out towards it. You have a tendril that reaches out from your mind. And I'm not speaking about the hacked operating system known as your human mind, from your true mind that reaches out and can touch and interact with anything else. It's non-local. It is not limited through time or space. If you want to learn about plants, I can be sitting here in my house and I can reach out with my tendril of attention to any plant anywhere at any time. If I want to learn about the ancient Mayans, I don't have to be only stuck in this time reading a book about the Mayans. I can take my tendril of attention and focus it on the Mayan culture, even though they're not here right now at this time. I know this is pretty amazing and intense, but you also have to understand the power of attention. Because right now, in this time and place, many people are unconscious. They aren't conscious of the way their attention is being used. So, for example, the phenomenon of anxiety or the disease of anxiety is because people are placing their attention unwittingly or unwillingly on outcomes that they do not wish to manifest. And what you place your attention on is what you are putting energy into. So if you're thinking and thinking and thinking, I hope my loved one isn't dead in a ditch somewhere because of a car accident, you're literally placing energy into that possible reality. Brief pause. In this time and place, it is considered to be a noble profession to intentionally disrupt people's attention through advertising or marketing. To put up a big billboard saying, hey, look over here. If you're driving along, don't think your own thoughts as you are driving down this road or focus entirely on the traffic. Please divert your attention and look at this sign over here that says, buy a hamburger or whatever it says. That is considered to be an acceptable or noble profession. However, it is a diversion of your attention. It is literally trying to pull you off of the timeline that you're on and put you onto a different timeline where all of a sudden you're thinking about hamburgers and being hungry and maybe even driving down that road and buying a hamburger. Same thing with any advertising now. It's mostly on websites. You're reading an article on a particular website, and then in the margins or in a pop-up, there is an advertisement that says, give me your attention. And it can be very challenging to be like, no, get out of here. I'm, crossing off that advertisement so I can focus on the article I really wish to focus on. We can go even further because whatever you are thinking about is what you are attenuating to. So let's say there's celebrity gossip, People magazine or whatever's on TV, and you're thinking about celebrity gossip. You are literally attaching the tendril of your mind to that celebrity, to their plastic surgery, to their outrageous behavior, to their spending habits, whatever it is. You're now attenuating to that. You're giving energy to it. It is an energy harvesting machine. And we need to understand this, that there are energy harvesting machines that are presently running. These are like software programs in the cosmos where your attention is being diverted and harvested most of the time unconsciously, most of the time against your free will. And when you begin to become conscious, you start to say, I don't like my energy and my attention to be diverted like that. I'm conscious and I don't like to read websites where there are these distracting pop-up ads. I don't like it when I'm trying to do my work, my artwork or my music, and there are distracting mental intruders. So now we're going to get into bliss also. Bliss is the inner state when you are in perfect divine harmony, when you are in balance, when you're emitting the tone of love, that is the tone of unconditional acceptance of being here. Bliss does not necessarily mean you're a drooling idiot, sitting in a vegetative state doing nothing. No. Bliss is the state when I'm in my groove making my artwork. Literally, when I am like, I know exactly what color to pick up next. I know exactly what shape to do next. I know exactly what to do. I don't have to use my clunky, verbalized mind. That mind is a slow mind. I literally have to slow down my thoughts in order to place them into verbal cardboard boxes to put them out here through my throat on the radio so everyone can understand it. In my inner mind, especially when I'm doing something like making my artwork, my mind does not have to use words in order to think. And this is our true mind. The verbalized mind is an installation. It's a subroutine that the meta program of your true mind is running. However, the subroutine is so pervasive and insistent. And it's there from almost infancy that most people never turn it off. We begin to turn it off when we begin to practice mindfulness and meditation. And then you can begin to experience what your true mind is. Some people get blasted into their true mind by having a psychedelic experience. And when you ingest certain entheogens, certain hallucinogenic plant substances, it turns off that verbalized hijack mind or presses pause on the capacity to, access language, and people achieve blissful inner states where they perceive directly and do not have to use the system of symbolic interpretation and language structure that is very clunky and really makes it more difficult for us to think and function. And P.S., that we were telepathic before our genes were changed. Before the genetic degradation that took away your higher faculties, we were almost entirely telepathic. And the vocalization, the actual flapping of the moving mouth parts and making of sounds externally, was reserved only for, high ritual, like for singing or intoning or chanting, because vibrating the atmosphere with my larynx is placing real vibrations into the world. So we did not, in ancient Atlantis, have casual conversations. There was no, please pass the ketchup. Every word that was spoken was profound and filled with intent and meaning, because if it wasn't really, really meaningful, it didn't have to be spoken. We could simply send little messages that were necessary. Will you please pass the ketchup to me? Telepathically using the higher faculties. Brief pause. I want to remember to tell you that I described the brow chakra as like your library card, getting into the cosmic library. I would like to tell you that your crown chakra, the energy center that is at the very top of your scalp, is like the librarian of the cosmos. And this is very important. Because in order to really learn, we must read or ingest information in the correct order. Like I said, if you only read the first paragraph and then don't bother to read the next paragraph, you can really draw a distorted conclusion or have a distorted education. And it's really important to have the cosmic librarian bring you your information in the correct order. So this is also when people begin to access their third eye and see through time, they start to understand and question, who was I in a past life? Who have I been? And some people even do readings for other people. This is all on the anthropocentric or anthropomorphic level, and it is all highly distorted. I'll save you all a bunch of money. If you ever feel like paying someone to channel the Akashic Records and tell you who you are, you've all been everyone. You are all the same photon that is being emitted from the source and coming and coalescing into consciousness in the material realm and being emitted back to source over and over and over again. And it is not a linear experience. It is congruent, confluent. It is at the same time. So you have been Hitler, you have been Jesus, you have been the worst, most unrecalcitrant axe murderer and the best, noblest, and most heroic hero or heroine, and every ordinary peasant in between. It is all you. If you really, really understand that on a deep level, then it changes the way that you approach human society. It changes the way that you approach food. It changes the way that you approach everything, because you understand you are eating yourself. So there would be no more justification of like the rich versus the poor. No, it's not okay for some people to be born into crushing poverty that they can never leave, because that's you. You're experiencing that. You are an untouchable caste member in India that has been born to the lowest social station, and the only possibilities in your life are those of cleaning out sewers and toilets. That's you. That's not okay. That is not okay. We begin to look for social equity and justice, and we begin to look for everybody having access to resources and everybody being loved, when we really understand that all consciousness is one. All consciousness is one consciousness. You begin to dilate your personality or expand your definition of yourself to include all consciousness, and then you say, I want self or all consciousness to be happy and calm and peaceful and well-fed and loved, and to live in a good harmonic structure. So when you have raised your energy only up to the level of the brow, indigo, but not quite achieved violet, that is when you are most vulnerable to misinterpretation, to reading the energy of the cosmos out of order, drawing the wrong conclusions, and acting in a destructive way as opposed to acting in a constructive way. When you actually fully achieve that I am God moment by raising your energy all the way up to the crown, it is empirical information. What the information that comes into you at that point is like plugging directly into the source of power. It hasn't been interpreted. It hasn't been stepped down. It hasn't been distorted. And energy necessarily has to be distorted as it is slowed down and brought into heavier levels of density. So just like on an old-fashioned audio tape, like if you slow it down, the person's voice sounds lower and lower and slower. That is what's happening with energy that comes from the source. And it's supposed to be slowed down, because if you plug directly into the sun or the stellar network, you'd get fried. It's moving too fast. That energy is moving too fast for you. You are light that has the privilege of moving slower than the speed of light. And if you plug directly into energy that's moving at the speed of light, that is overwhelming, and it will cause an instantaneous transformation of your system from being solid directly into being light. And we call that like being incinerated, being vaporized. If I placed you directly on the surface of the sun right now, you'd be instantaneously vaporized, because you are a material object moving slower than the speed of light. Okay? So I call this broadcast Birth of a New Dimension. Brief pause. I keep saving my work. That's why I pause. This is Birth of a New Dimension, where what is happening is equity. The beings that are moving at a much faster rate and beings that are moving at a much slower rate, or beings that are coming from a higher dimensional, less dense realm, and beings that are coming from a lower dimensional, more dense realms, are equalizing out. More dense is becoming less dense is becoming more dense. Physical beings such as yourself and myself are becoming less dense. We are becoming less physical. Beings that are already non-physical are becoming more dense and are becoming more physical. I hope this is all beginning to make sense. If you're a person who listens to my broadcasts regularly, I speak about these broadcasts as being the preparation, like you prepare the soil in a garden so that you can plant some seeds. And the seeds that we're planting are seeds of a new society, all right? A new society. And it's not just human or earth society. It is a new cosmic or a new galactic society, where we will no longer have this distinction made between the physical realm and the non-physical realm. Either physical versus spiritual, or physical versus energetic, or physical versus pure consciousness. Many extraterrestrials are beings of pure consciousness, all right? Then there are extraterrestrials who are utilizers of technology. They use physical technology to support their consciousness. And there are beings such as you and I. We are physical beings that eat physical food and require a physical planet to support our structured consciousness. All of these beings are about to, or are at the moment of, coming together and interacting. The physical realm, this realm that we are in, this is like a stage where all of the forces and particles and consciousnesses are like actors on the stage and are all coming to interact. Now I'd like to speak about the Flying Rainbow Lasagne. This is my contribution to the interdimensional or cosmic language of vibration. It's made of color, line, shape, form, movement, texture, and tone. And tone meaning like, a musical note, a tone. This structured, it is a vibratory language, And I didn't invent the language, although I'm flattered when people look at my artwork and they think that I invented all of those patterns. I didn't. I perceived all of those patterns with my higher faculties, and I painted them as accurately as I could in order to teach people here in this time and place about this language. And learning about this language is part of preparing consciousness to plant the seeds. It is also preparing you to transform into a flying rainbow lasagna, which is the higher dimensional state, or next highest dimensional state, of your non-physical energy presence. Your body is ordinarily shaped like a donut, or a torus, or a toroidal structure. And when you add an additional dimension, you add an additional degree of freedom, you make that torus jump up and down in the new context that you've created for it, and it makes a flying rainbow lasagna shape. And this shape is the shape of non-duality. It is the shape of rectifying two areas that were formerly separated by a membrane or a boundary. So we can now rectify the past being separated from the future. All of that is a construct that is the result of your ego mind and the programs that have been implanted by your hacked human operating system, your understanding of time. Yes, when you first come here as an infant, you don't understand time. You don't think, what time is Sesame Street on today? You go from moment to moment. It's very similar to the way that a plant or an animal without the human operating system, the way that they move through time, moment to moment. And it is the installation of the human intellect that allows us to think about the past or anticipate the future. And these are very special things to be able to do that. It's one level of development. It's not the end of the journey. So for the most part, we come here as an infant. We are part of the oceanic consciousness. We don't have a sense of self. We aren't separated from the rest of time. Then we develop an ego, a sense of self. We feel separated from the rest of time, and we feel separated from various events and possibilities. And that's not the end of the journey. We are then meant to dissolve that boundary and return to the totality consciousness, to return to the oceanic consciousness, to ascend back to the state of bliss, essentially. When I am painting or doing my music, not when I'm first learning a song and then it's like, what note comes next? I don't know, let me figure it out. But when I know a song and I'm really grooving away, I'm in bliss. I don't have to anticipate the next note. I'm just in the now, and the next note comes. Or like when I'm painting, I know exactly what I need to be painting. So through artwork, through music, through athleticism. Again, if you're an athlete, like a runner, and you're at the peak of your fitness, and you're out running and getting, like the runner's high, you're in bliss. You are doing exactly what you need to do. You're on the right timeline, thinking the right thoughts, performing the right actions, and you literally don't have to think. You just move from moment to moment. And when we are doing that, our genes and our genetic structure is actually dancing in harmony with the cosmos. That feeling of bliss inside of you is your thumbs up from the cosmos saying you're doing everything right. You're doing what you're supposed to be doing. Now I'd like to contrast that feeling of bliss with the feelings that human society mostly engenders by the activities that are rewarded. In human society, you get rewarded by money or by food, and mostly you have to perform activities that are the antithesis of bliss. Going to school, going to work. What takes me out of bliss is when I have to do one of those phone prompts. Like you call up any kind of customer service hotline. If you need this, press 1. If you need this, press 2. If you need this, press 3. If you need this, press 4. I am immediately out of bliss. And literally, I can feel my genes just stopped dancing. They just stopped doing their happy dance. And now they are doing their clunky dance of, I don't really want to be doing this. And humans are domesticated in society by being taught to do things that they don't really want to do. That's what we teach children in school. Sit behind this desk even though you really want to be running around and playing. Do these activities with your mind even though you really want to be thinking something else. So what this comes down to is mental freedom and mental sovereignty. When you are free to think the thoughts you wish and use your mind in the way that is comfortable to you, you achieve bliss. When you have to work for a job or go get your education, you are asked to use your mind in an uncomfortable way that reduces your bliss. This is not just changing the shape of your mind. It's changing the trajectory of your consciousness through time. It's changing which timeline you're experiencing. It's changing your genetic structure. We now need to understand exactly how profound it is that someone else on earth is affecting or controlling your behavior through the dangling carrot of money and work, which we all have to face. I'm a walk-in. Oh my goodness, if this is the first broadcast you've ever listened to, 56 minutes into it, and I'm just describing to you that I'm a galactic walk-in, and I'm new to this society, and I had to learn, just as all of you have had to learn, how to exist within the socioeconomic paradigm. And boy, it's very challenging, because mostly the things that people get paid for are activities that do not induce bliss. Hey, if you could get paid for lying on a beach in the sunlight, then that would be a very wonderful life. But mostly people get paid to be under fluorescent lights in a cubicle in front of a computer, typing away and sitting in an uncomfortable posture. So mostly what is rewarded here through money is not blissful activities. But of course, I am here to change and improve that. So I'm a walk-in, and the membrane dissolving transformational portal through which I came into this physical presence is called the Flying Rainbow Lasagne. And this is the next highest dimensional shape of what happens when you place your toroidal energy structure into a higher dimension. You can rearrange your genes, and you can live in bliss all the time. I'm not saying I live in bliss all the time. I experience the full range of human emotions, including being upset or being angry or being ill or any of those things. However, what I try to do with my consciousness every day is cultivate as much bliss as I can, to stay away from the phone prompts and other activities that reduce my bliss, and cultivate my bliss as much as possible. So I try to do my artwork, do my music, and whatever daily task that I have to do, I try to approach it in a blissful way. Again, this does not mean that I never do the dishes. That would not be very blissful, to have cockroaches crawling all over dirty dishes everywhere. However, when I do the dirty dishes, I do them as part of the natural flow of my day. It is the antithesis of having a boss that says, now it is time for you to do this, now it is time for you to do this. And when we are free to direct our own consciousness throughout the day, then we can make our daily tasks comfortable and blissful as much as possible. Birth of a new dimension means we are moving into the realm where there will be an immediate manifestation of your inner state in your outer realm. So you are going to be instantaneously creating the world that you see around you based upon your inner emotions. So we need to learn to cultivate bliss and unconditional love so that we are creating beautiful things from that state, as opposed to creating from a state of fear and discomfort. Thank you so much for being with me on this journey. Please continue to tune in so that we can prepare everyone for the ongoing birth of the new dimension.